and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, retired librarian turned homeschool mom, and this is my 6th review and 7th video on the Harry Potter series. I start off with an interesting little rant about JK Rowling and what you should, and my opinion on how we should handle these books, and then I go through the first 6 books. This is book 7, or no, sorry, book 6, The Half-Blood Prince. So my only advice, and I will say this, I've said this at the beginning of every single one of my book reviews, if you don't already own these, do not buy them new, because that supports Rowling and her bigotry, no matter how little. Borrow them from your library, buy them from used bookstores. Your library is probably selling them on occasion with their own used book sales, so that's always good to support public libraries and their book sales. So, but we're going to talk about this book. I don't know a lot about this book. I hate book 5, as I've done in my previous review on book 5. This book is very long, it's very convoluted, it starts going all over the place. I think Rowling started getting full of herself at this point. So I don't like this book any more than I like book 5. It gets very, very dark. I'm not particularly fond of the very, very dark thing. So I pretty much have skimmed through this book a couple times. Not very often. So, partially because nobody liked to this is an interesting book. Dumbledore dies at the end of this book. So Harry has pretty much lost the majority of his mentors at this point. So there was rumors that she was planning on killing off Ron Weasley in book 5 because she hated him. And how you hate a character you create, but nonetheless she became to hate Harry Potter. She also hated Quidditch. But that's on to this book. So in this book, Harry's hanging out at the Dursley. I don't think anything adverse actually happens. Basically, they're ignoring him at this point. And they've also realized Voldemort's back, so Petunia's kind of terrified. You get a lot more of the backstory into Harry's mother in this book. This book revolves around Severus Snape, who, that's the Half-Blood Prince. It's actually his last name. But Dumbledore, the book starts off, I don't know, he's not at the Dursleys very long. Dumbledore comes one night, I think the Dursleys are out, and basically leaves with Harry. I think he leaves a note for the Dursleys. His hand is all shriveled up. He's wearing some weirdy, creepy ring. And he takes Harry to find a former potions master by the name of Slughorn, who's running around hiding. Now, Slughorn was a Slytherin. He's actually the representation of what a kind of good Slytherin is. He's not on the side of Voldemort. He never taught him. No, he did. That's the thing. He taught him. He was very fond of him. Slughorn is very fond of power in a sense that he doesn't want to do anything. He likes being connected. He's the type of person who will name drop anytime you get it. It's like, I know all sorts of famous people. I don't do anything, but I know these people. So he has a very specific club that he brings, like, people that he thinks is highly intelligent. Ron is not one of them. He likes Hermione because she reminds him of Lily. So, but Harry, basically, he becomes the potion master. So Harry, who had been taking his owls, because this is modeled off Britain, so they take exams at different years, both, I think, in their 6th form and then when they finish school. So Harry was originally, he's not very good at potions because, you know, Snape's a dick. So he didn't do very good on his potions examination, so he didn't think he could get into potions this year. But because Slughorn's involved, he does. So, and he finds this out when he gets to school. Snape finally got his position doing the Defense Against the Dark Arts. So, again, I don't read this book very well, so I know bits and pieces. I have a tendency to skim through it. So, there's a lot of Slughorn in this book. The world's very dark. Dumbledore is there, but he's also being very, very cryptic. And he is starting to treat Harry more like an adult. Because eventually Sirius is gone. The war is going on. Snape is being creepy. And eventually he's a double agent. He starts that in book 4. So he's kind of having to play both sides. And he has to hide it and he does, because he's a dick. No matter what people say, Severus Snape is a dick. But he also, I believe I don't know if he's still teaching. I think this might be the book where he's teaching Harry alchemy. I believe I mentioned it in my last review. I may have mixed up books here. Let me see. Nope. No, I didn't. It is. So, but Harry still finds out a lot more about Snape in this book. So Snape is also a half-blood. I believe his father, similar to Voldemort, Snape's father was human. He grew up very, very poor. But he was very close friends with Lily Evans, which is Harry's mother. But Harry, obviously, Lily ends up as a Gryffindor. You also find out a little bit more about Petunia Evans, or Harry's Aunt Petunia Dursley in most of the books. She desperately wanted to be a witch. So she actually wrote Dumbledore. She originally desperately wanted to be like her sister. She loved her little sister very, very much at this point because they're still young girls. But then she became very, very jealous of her, and she basically grew to hate her because her sister was powerful and was doing strange things and going off and doing wonderful things, and everybody loved Lily. And so Petunia got very, very mad and very, very jealous. I don't know if any of these books ever explain what happened to the Evans parents. I could be wrong, it's mentioned in this book, but again, Lily is originally she's a childhood friend of Severus Snape's, and they go off to school. She ends up in Gryffindor. He's a Slytherin, because that's what his mother's family is. Again, I don't read this book very closely. I know bits and pieces from what I've read. It's very long and very dark. So, that's kind of what you find out. You find out much more that James Potter was a bit of a dick. He was a bit of a bully. Eventually he grows up. And you see him, I think in the last book, you see him bullying, specifically Sirius bullying Snape. You see a little bit more of what's going on in this book, partially because Harry ends up with Snape's old potions book that was in the closet. And I don't know if it's kind of talking back to him or not, but essentially, I do not believe it is. He's not possessed. He thinks he might be, but Ginny is like, no, you're being an idiot. I was possessed. Trust me. I know what it's like. But you also see Draco acting very, very weird in this book. He starts becoming very, very depressed. Harry knows something's going on because he witnessed something through Voldemort where the Malfoys are kind of on the outs because his dad was, basically, he was a brown-noser, and he went where the power was, and when Voldemort collapsed, he never went to prison, and he lied a lot. But what you eventually find out is his mother, Draco, basically has to kill Dumbledore, or I think his mother might die. That might be it. Or Severus, and basically Severus has to help him, because Narcissa begs him to help save her child. And that is one of the other things that runs through these books, is a mother's love. That's kind of, which makes sense for Rowling, because she was a single mother through some of this. And so she very much focuses on a mother's love. To her, that's everything that's important. Turns out she's still not a good person. That doesn't make her a good person. Moving on. So, again, I'm all over the place with this because, similar to book 5, I don't read these books very often, but I still review them because I love the first 4. And I actually like the epilogue, but we'll get there. So essentially that's kind of the story. You have Harry dealing with Snape, him trying to figure out what the heck's going on with Draco, who suddenly become very, very depressed, not very popular anymore for various reasons, and Slughorn showing things off, and eventually Voldemort getting more and more into power. It ends with Dumbledore taking Harry to this cave where he's trying to get a hold of what he explains are pieces of Voldemort's soul, so Horcruxes, which is what he's trying to find and destroy. And he thought this ring was one of them. So he takes Harry with him to this cave to help him get this locket. And eventually, when they get back, he forces Harry to make him finish drinking this thing, no matter how much he wants to stop. Remember, this is a 16-year-old, and he's doing this too. And then they get back to the castle, and Snape kills him. Mind you, find out this is Harry hears this because basically Dumbledore stuns him and throws the invisibility cloak over top of him, and Snape kills Dumbledore. Only you basically realize, I don't know if Harry realizes this at this point, it's assisted suicide. Dumbledore was dying, and basically he is asking Severus to kill him, and that's what Severus does, also to protect Malfoy, because Malfoy becomes a sniveling little 16-year-old boy who can't commit murder, because even though he's evil, he's not quite that evil, apparently. So, and you find that out later in the book 7. So that's how this book ends. Dumbledore dies. Voldemort basically gets ultimate power, and again, Harry actually has to spend at least a brief period of time back at the Dursleys. The Dumbledore's army is still intact. The Order of the Phoenix has to eventually, I believe in the next book, rescue Harry and start hiding people, and essentially the war is in more horrible conditions because Dumbledore, who basically kept Voldemort in control, is now gone, and everything kind of goes crazy at the end of this. And basically Harry realizes he's not coming back to school. So that's kind of how this book ends, is Harry realizes he has to find these Horcruxes and destroy Voldemort, because that's the only way to kill him. So that's kind of how this book ends. Yeah, it's all over the place. There's a lot of details that I'm missing out because I did not read this book in detail. It's very, very dark. It's very, very long. How long is this one? Yeah, this is like 650 pages. So it's very, very long and very, very convoluted in some places. It's very obvious at this point, and starting around book 5, that JK Rowling didn't think this out all that clearly. She didn't set the groundwork for a lot of her world building, which she's very, very bad at. So things kind of get all over the place. She kind of had it loosely built out, but as opposed to someone like Martin, who was very, very good at world building and actually character design, just not finishing his books. That's what he's bad at. He's a procrastinator, not good at finishing his books. And Tolkien, who is a very, very good at world building, not really good at characters. But yeah, it's very, very obvious in this book that she is starting to make things up as she goes. When it comes to her world here, she's not quite sure of how things work. So I do not like this book. Again, I meander a little bit here because I don't know it as well as I do the first 4, similar to my last review with book 5. But that is the end of this review. Again, very, very depressing book. Not one I read very well. I actually saw this. This is the only other film that I saw in theaters. I, however, was not in the United States when I did this. I was in Bucharest, Romania, as a Peace Corps volunteer, trying to relax after a disastrous site visit that ended up being somewhere else. Yeah, my Peace Corps experience is a tale for another video. I'm not even sure it's relevant, but yeah. Again, that's the end of this. If you like this review, I encourage you to start at the beginning of my Harry Potter reviews. I have a bunch of other book reviews, various other videos, including homeschooling stuff, travel stuff. So check out, like, and subscribe if you want to see more of my stuff. I'm a little bit more clear on most books, but again, I'm covering these because they're really popular. I will probably read them to my children, but I don't like this book. I don't like book 5 either. They're depressing. So, but that is it. Again, like and subscribe. Thank you.